Wonderful. Good morning. I didn't hear that. I thought we were a crypto conference. Good morning. Good morning. Wonderful. This is so incredible to be here after 2 crazy years of the pandemic. I know that we have guests from all around the world. So can I get just a show of hands? This is all about community in the end. So who is coming in from North America? Okay, I know there were a few, but not in this room today. South America, Central America, yes, wonderful. Jet lagged still? No? Asia? Africa? We will work on those things as we will discuss today. How about Europe? How about if you came from Portugal? Woohoo! Thank you so much for such a warm welcome so far. Great. So, my name is Nettra Pan. I am a lecturer at Bayes Business School in London, and I specialize in the process of creating new projects, creating new ventures. So I teach entrepreneurship and purpose-driven innovation and entrepreneurship. And like many of you, I got bit by the crypto bug, and I've been really fascinated about understanding how different organizing in crypto and Web3 is. And so today, what I want to talk to you about are just some very, very high-level ideas, and I'll leave some time at the end for a discussion, because what I'm really aware of is already different factions, different groups already forming in the Web3 space. So for those of you who are hardcore engineers and cryptography, security enthusiasts, you know that the ETHCC, ETH Lisbon conferences have a very different makeup from what we're seeing now with NFT LA or Bitcoin Miami. And what I really want with this talk is to stay high level, use some high level examples, and leave some time for conversation on what community means in the Web3 space, as well as how is organizing in the Web3 space different from what we've seen before. So, before I go into Web3, I'm going to talk a little bit about what it was like before. So the majority of my research is based on investor decision making. This is a selection of investors that I've talked to over my PhD, the ones that have agreed to be named. And here you'll see some family offices, some wealth management firms, some impact investors, some foundations, and some traditional VCs. And what I've been able to do as I've been able to categorize these VCs, I've developed venture model archetypes to understand ideal makeups for solving social and environmental problems. And I've also built an investor purpose diagnosis tool that is basically like a quiz, like a Facebook quiz, but scientifically backed, that tells you what you're interested in terms of social change, community metrics, or financial and business outcomes. And what I've found from the last few years, entering crypto first as a crypto advisor in entering crypto first as a venture advisor in 2017, and then starting to collect and mint my own art in 2021, and doing a lot of field work on a little app called Clubhouse, where I've met some of you, is that Web2 is not like Web3. And let me explain why. In Web2 sailing, based on my research, we can look at a venture, a new project, like a sailboat. There's usually a founder CEO that leads, and this founder CEO manages to assemble a team, a skilled team around them. This team then builds a product, and development funds are projected to either meet the goals of the product development or not. But you need this makeup. You need the boat, you need someone who's going to steer the ship. And what the team will do is they'll put together a market strategy, and hopefully they'll go to calmer seas, like what we're seeing in this picture. Hopefully they'll go to a receptive, open market. Okay, so what you see here, founder, CEO, skilled team, criteria 1. Market strategy, criteria 2. The tech product, criteria 3. funds, finances, criteria 4, and market characteristics, criteria 5. Since we've been doing research on VC and decision-making for the last few decades, these have always been the 5 criteria that we've used to evaluate a new venture. Now, I believe that DeFi protocols and new NFT projects challenge at least 3 of these 5 criteria. So let's go over that again. We have the team. In the team, investors usually look for founder commitment. We look at whether the founder has quit their job to go full-time on this. We look at what is the relationship between the founders. And here's a nice, something that's nice to know. More experienced VCs will tend to look at founder rapport rather than individual founder certifications. So a younger, less experienced investor might say, okay, that person has a business qualification, a technology qualification, so it's checking all the boxes. A more experienced VCs, and I see people nodding in the audience, so you know about this, will look at the rapport. Why? Because it does make sense that it does make sense that a team that is founded by 2 people who have been best friends forever, or who have founded multiple companies together, will be more comfortable dealing with stormy seas. What happens when you lose the map? What happens when you get lost? You need to have that trust and confidence with each other to be able to challenge each other, have that productive conflict that doesn't get personal, doesn't get effective, to actually figure out where to go. Offer. This is exciting because, as many of you know in the Web3 space, a lot of offers are made off of what are called forked protocols. So these are open source code that are not protected by IP. Many NFT launches pride themselves now for allowing you to do whatever you want with the JPEG. In the past, this wasn't the case. Actually, this is still ongoing, so it's not quite the past yet, although I know many of us want to make this the past. In the past, investors looked at IP, whether this technology is protected. Now, this is becoming less and less true, even in cases when investors look at IP, because we live in the age of the internet, we live in the age of instant communication. So even though there are investors that really look at patents and those types of qualifications underlying the product, we are already in a phase where people are copying business models that are practically open source because they're not technology, so they can't be protected. Well, in Web3, we've gone another step ahead, where the technology itself is explicitly forkable. Strategy, market entry strategy, roadmap. These 3 are the ones I believe are being challenged by what we're seeing in the Web3 space. Now, market, that's still up for grabs. I still believe we're interested in large, unconquered, and growing markets. This is something I believe is stable. And finance. Finance is another question mark. There we go. So let's sum up what I think the differences are in the Web3 space versus the Web2. We're all familiar with Bored Apes. Gordon Goner, this is his profile picture. And until his identity was revealed in a BuzzFeed article, we didn't widely know his true government-backed identity. This was what we knew him to be on-chain. So the very first criteria that is being challenged by Web3 is this team idea. We no longer need to prove team credentials to a central actor, such as an investor. Instead, we need to prove it to a wider community. We're always immediately starting almost as a crowdfunding campaign. So the team credentials are not responsible for initial success, as we've seen with projects like Bored Ape. Instead, it's the publicly available information in the roadmap and the on-chain follow-up, the on-chain credentials. It is a social process rather than a technical box-checking process. Product features. Product features are no longer a sustainable source of competitive advantage. How many of you followed the great vampire attack between SushiSwap and Uniswap? We have one hand in the audience. How many of you followed the vampire attack of LooksRare and OpenSea? Wonderful. So we are very much non-fungible conference Lisbon and not a DeFi conference. I love that. But essentially, it's the same thing. So for those of you who don't know, Uniswap was launched as an automated market maker. It's a decentralized exchange where you can go and trade different cryptocurrencies. And what they did, I'm making the very long and very exciting story short, so please do look it up on YouTube, is that SushiSwap copied and pasted the code that was used to create this automated market maker. They copied and pasted it, and they gave incentives for people, liquidity providers, to the Uniswap platform to take their liquidity out and put it in SushiSwap. So we have essentially a clone, an identical product, and thus proving that it's not the product itself and the product features that are what makes the sustainable competitive advantage. With LooksRare looked at the trading, collecting, and selling history of artists and collectors on OpenSea. OpenSea.io is a truly incredible platform that has been around for several years now. It's one of the largest NFT trading platforms until LooksRare. LooksRare looked at people's collecting history and airdropped them or gifted them, sent them free tokens. It's a $looks, if you're interested in looking that up on CoinGecko. Almost like as if McDonald's gave coupons to people who buy from Burger King. LooksRare said, hey, I know you like NFT trading. We also like NFT trading. Here are some freebies on us. For those of you who are new to the Web3 space, this might sound very scammy, actually. But being someone who actually received the Looks token, I can assure you, I took some of that. I went to a decentralized exchange, and I exchanged it for Ethereum. So it made me money. And that is not an endorsement of LooksRare, but just an example of how different products can steal customers so easily because it is not the product itself that is the source of competitive advantage. And a final example is what I think all of us are most excited about when we join the Web3 space, and that's the idea of decentralization. It's the idea of co-creation and collaborative innovation. On the left there is a woman from the World of Women collection, incredible socially driven project that's using Web3 infrastructure to achieve their goals. And forgive me, it's quite small, but this woman is wearing earrings with an artistic design on them. And there are only 21 out of 10,000 women with this. Now, it really sounds like I'm shilling this project. There are only 21 out of 10,000 women with these earrings. And what the project did was they said, hey, if you happen to luckily mint or put your hand into the magician's hat and pull out a woman with these earrings, or buy one, then we are giving you the rights to vote on and decide which art piece we buy every month. So the World of Women collection is using their secondary sales in a very interesting way. They've split it to investors, they've split it to charities, but they also have a portion, which is the WOW Art Fund. And anyone with this woman can actually vote on which artwork to collect next. And so in this way, World of Women has opened up a key decision-making power, financial power, on determining where this collection should invest, which assets, which digital assets this collection should have in their vault. ENS, the Ethereum naming service, one of the OG projects, recently airdropped ENS coins. Now, the difference between the ENS token and others is that it is a governance token. So you can sell this. It does have a market value. but most of all, it allows you to vote on key decisions. And so what we see in Web3 space is a very strong social pressure to decentralize and to include people in the decision-making process. So we have more structured examples like the ones I'm sharing today, which are more contained in the world of women case, or more distributed in the ENS case. But what's really exciting is a new trend of potentially headless brands. So in a sense, you have this ship floating around in the ocean, and anyone with a great idea going through the proper channels can determine the direction of the ship. Now, in the last few minutes, I do want to talk to you about how then these 3 criteria have been shaped. So I've already gone into some very, very specific examples, but what I see most of all is this idea of it's not the artwork, it's not the protocol, it's the community. The community is great. And that's what I'm most excited about researching today, and I'd love to talk to anybody who wants some research experience or to sponsor this kind of really important community work. Why? Because we don't actually have good metrics for community health. When we say the community is great, it's unclear what we mean. Are we talking about reactivity? Someone says, hey, I've been hacked. Hey, I have this question. Is it how quickly someone responds on the Discord? Are we talking about engagement? And engagement vis-a-vis what? The total population of holders? Are we talking about feedback? People willing to comment and retweet and share comments on social media? Or are we talking about legitimate governance proposals? With ENS, what is actually the makeup of delegates that vote? What is actually the makeup of delegates that make proposals? So what I want to leave you with then is some critique about what I've just shared. So I made the case that at least three of the traditional VC criteria are being challenged. So is it the community that can explain this? Is it the social reputation? It could be. Instead of a team only proving it to one entity, they're proving it to a social entity now. With regards to product, is it the community then that's the source of competitive advantage in the case of LooksRare and OpenSea? As we see, it's not the product that matters, it's the people that follow it, the people who feel valued for creating value and are invited to that process. Or is it rather incentives, organizational structure? In LooksRare, people who have the Looks token get a percentage of all secondary sales on the platform. How about venture roadmap? Is it the community that's changing this criteria by applying social pressure, saying, hey, we should go this way and not that way? Or is it rather the governance structures, the governance opportunities? That's all I have for you today, but I think we have maybe a little bit of time for question. Thank you so much for your attention. No questions. Okay, we have one at the back there.
Hello. Does it work?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know if it's a good question, but it's a question.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah. How is it, for example, in the case of the world of women, there's a certain amount of people who were lucky enough to get this NFT, or what you want to call it, from the magic hat. How is this different from centralization, if only these people can vote for what's going to happen to the collection?
Yes, very good point. So I use the world of women example because it's an example of a very structured and specific way you can decentralize one key decision. So what you mentioned was that when the smart contract is launched, people pick into the hat and they see what kind of woman they get, right? And they're only 21 out of 10,000, and so this is still a small amount. So you're right that it's not distributed in terms of the decision-making power. However, when this project just launched, the women were very affordable, let's say, compared to what they are today, at 0.07 ETH. And there was no extra charge because of the women's attributes. The market soon learned that having those earrings meant something, and so there was a small premium added. But at the very early stages, anyone could join, and if they decided that this was a decision that they'd like to be part of. Yes. Yeah. One more question. One more follow-up.
So in the beginning, it wasn't set in stone that these were the specific NFTs or pictures that gave you voting power. So who decided that the women with the earrings gave you voting power?
Yes, so this was a centralized top-down decision, you're right. And it was published. And so I'm not saying that it's completely decentralized because they did this. What I'm saying is that they're creating clear avenues for engagement where they can say, this is something that we could centrally manage through recruiting and then hiring a head curator. Instead, if this is important to you, you can participate, this is how. Now, unfortunately, these women are extremely heavily overpriced, but it is an inspiration, I think, for a very easy tweak using existing Web3 technology just to invite more people into key decision-making processes. So I think we have time for one more question. Someone should cut me off if we don't. Yes.
I wanted to ask about the importance of physical spaces in community building, because all the examples are obviously online in Web 3.0, but what you see now, the pandemic is kind of hopefully over, is that people are also connecting it to events, to concerts, to kind of live egg hunts. So how do you see those trends in community building?
No, that's an excellent question, and also part of the reason I'm so happy to be here today and not talking to you online. I think a really important community metric that we'll need to look at is the amount of people that also participate in real life. So for most people, participating online is a lower barrier. They can log in, they can put a few messages on different platforms per day. And in fact, this is, I think, what also changes the decision-making criteria around the team. So before I mentioned that the founder should quit their job and really be committed, here it's actually allowed to be less committed in favor of decentralization and supporting a wider community project. So the barrier is higher for in-real IRL interactions. Therefore, it would be a good community metric to see what percentage of people participate both online and offline. But the flip side can be said that it's easy for certain people who have certain access to participate in person for a small subset of group. And so I would say also it's worth looking at how online communities really facilitate the online engagement, because that is actually a way that we can include more of the world, as we saw Asia and Africa are missing today, in person. But this is a way to actually truly decentralize beyond Europe and North America to actually create more global communities. All right, well, I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much for these two great questions. Please do DM me or tweet me, and if you didn't ask a question, I would love to hear what you're working on and how you build community. Thanks so much for your attention.